Hi, my name's Charlie Thame. I'm an assistant professor of IR at Thammasat University in Bangkok. I've been invited to give a short introduction to my article recently published in the Review of International Studies. It's called The Economic Corridors Paradigm as Extractivism, 4 Theses for a Historical Materialist Framework, and is based on several years' work on economic corridors and related projects in mainland Southeast Asia. While conducting that work, I found that although there's a lot of grey literature on these corridors, this is mostly published or funded by multilateral development banks. And it was hard to find conceptual or theoretical work on corridors, which is why I wrote this article. And why are economic corridors an important issue in IR? Well, we're all familiar with the Belt and Road Initiative, made up of 6 land economic corridors and a maritime corridor, but they're also being promoted in the European Union, India, and across Africa. Japan, India, and the United States have announced plans to use them to connect Asia, Africa, and the so-called Indo-Pacific. The G7 has just announced a plan to challenge China's BRI with the Build Back Better World Partnership. Although details are scarce, corridors will likely provide the scaffolding for much of this infrastructure. So they're under development on every continent of the planet, with the exception of Antarctica. They've emerged as a key concept guiding foreign policy and development initiatives worldwide, and are increasingly subject to geopolitical competition. Yet there's been little conceptual work on economic corridors to date in IR. So to better understand them, the article outlines what I call the conventional rationale. This builds on classical and neoclassical economic principles in policy, planning, and the new economic geography, and is used by multilateral banks to convince states and societies of their utility as a means of development, premised on the assumption of win-win cooperation. A key claim is that connectivity will stimulate economic performance of underdeveloped and so-called backward regions by offsetting their peripherality with infrastructure. This is presented as a mutually beneficial, equilibrium-seeking process, with corridors acting as instruments for inclusive and sustainable development, contributing to convergence between countries. Now, from my perspective here in the Mekong, the reality is anything but, especially if you're paying attention to issues such as environmental degradation and labor exploitation, and are interested in what benefits there may be for poorer countries such as Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. Why the Mekong? Well, the Greater Mekong subregion is widely recognized as having the first and one of the most ambitious corridor programs in the world. So I think it provides a useful empirical ground, which then offers a basis for proposing 4 theses that capture important dynamics associated with economic corridors, supported with references to those in mainland Southeast Asia. That said, the aim of the article is to outline a framework that could be developed, refined, and applied to corridors elsewhere. So I hope others interested in economic corridors engage with the article, find it insightful and useful. The 4 theses proposed are as follows. Firstly, that corridors are a fix for crises of capitalism. Secondly, that corridors exacerbate class struggle. Thirdly, that corridors are tools for exploitation. And fourthly, that corridors facilitate financial extraction. Each challenges a key contention of the conventional paradigm, and taken together, the overarching argument is that economic corridors should be understood as an essentially extractivist paradigm. By which I mean a constellation of policy prescriptions that promote the expansion of capitalist social relations of production based on the subjugation of human and extra-human nature to intensified exploitation. I follow Zadra and Nielsen's approach to extractivism, understood as the process whereby capital draws on its multiple outsides for sustenance and expansion while depleting the social bases of wealth. And I ground the article in historical materialist approaches to IR, arguing that corridors extend and entrench processes of uneven and combined development. So I hope this brief introduction has persuaded you to read the paper. I think it should be of interest to people working on development, economic corridors, Southeast Asia, and historical materialist approaches to IR. And I welcome any feedback people might have. Thank you very much for listening.